And so yeah, the next slide is still on design. So everything from here on out is really going to be visual. And so again, your current look and aesthetic, style of graphics and imagery. What about your current design do you like? So I'm assuming that this is an already existing logo. It's not a brand new logo design. If it was a brand new logo design, then I would just skip this one slide. Everything else still applies. But if it's a redesign, I would ask them, what about your current design do you like? What about your current design do you dislike? And then I'll ask them, okay, what are the design styles you're drawn to and why? You know, what are the brands that you really like the way that they look? Not just the way that they're positioned, but then, man, these people are, this brand really looks a particular way, and that's the style that I'm drawn to for our brand. So you ask them about the design styles they're drawn to, and what are the design styles you hate, that you're repulsed by? What are the things that you dislike? And so you're narrowing down what's going to be appropriate, because again, when you reveal to them the strategy, they need to see themselves in it. And so you want to know what they like, what they dislike, and then present to them things that they're drawn to. The next slide, I talk about traditional versus modern. Okay, so you know there's a whole gambit of different types of brand identities that are out there. And so traditional would be something like that looks like it has its roots in some sort of shared heritage, right? So like the Coca-Cola logo, that's a very traditional logo. Typically logos that use serif typefaces look more traditional, whereas something like the Yahoo logo, you know, whether you like the brand or not, they use just very minimal, bold, striking design that's more modern, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, where do we see ourselves on the scale of traditional versus modern? And then have them assign themselves a number. And I do the same thing for illustrative versus iconic. Now, we always try to convince or talk our clients into having less illustrative and more iconic, because the simpler the design, the better. But we do want to at least ask this, you know, at the most illustrative, we would probably use like the Starbucks logo, right? Because there's a lot of detail in there. Anything more detailed than that, it kind of tends to fall apart in smaller sizes. But when we do think of illustrative, it's thinking of like a picture, an idea, it's conveying something, right? There's a lot more detail in there. So on a scale of 1 to 10, from illustrative to iconic, where do you see yourselves? And have them ascribe themselves a number. All right, after that, then I talk to them about logo types. All right, because most clients don't really realize that there's different types of logos. And so I show them this slide that shows at least 5 different types of logos. And then we go through some examples. I show them different word marks, and it covers the whole gambit from traditional to modern, illustrative to iconic. Same thing with picture marks, letter forms, emblems and badges, icon plus word mark. So this is kind of like a word mark that it's a word mark, but also uses the first letter of the word as a standalone icon. And then the infamous abstract iconography, the one that everybody wants and seems sort of like magic. Okay, so I show them all the different logo types, and then I say, or I ask them, which logo type are we drawn to or repelled by? Which logo type do we feel makes most sense? Are we looking at a letter form? Are we looking at just a word mark? Are you expecting an icon? Are you expecting a custom icon? What are we actually looking for? And so it's important to know that, because if you just give them a word mark, but they were expecting an icon, you might have some objections you have to overcome. This slide is super important. What all will our logo go on? When we reveal our brand strategies, when we reveal our logo design concepts, you never want to show a logo just in all of its glory on a white background, because you never really see logos like that in the world. Anytime you see a logo, it's always going to be in the context of something else. So you might see it on a banner, you might see it on a door, you might see it on a polo shirt or a hat, you might see it on a favicon in your web browser, you might see it on the side of a bus. If it's a restaurant, you're gonna see it maybe on the food bags, you're gonna see it on the walls, on the wraps. You're gonna see the logo in context of different applications. And so I always ask the question, what all will your logo go on? What would make sense to, like, this logo needs to look good on these applications? And so I'll make a list. And a lot of times this is gonna help us come up with the mock-ups that we need to produce for when we show our logos. Because again, when you show just the logo in all its glory in a white background, it might be like, oh, that looks great, or it might be unimpressive. But then once you start to see it in context, it starts to come alive and you see the potential of the brand. I ask them if they have any thoughts about color, and I take this kind of with a grain of salt because if they say we like red, well, that doesn't really necessarily mean anything. So I may or may not use that, but if they have some sort of emotional or historical tie to a color, then we might want to incorporate that. And so yeah, I'll ask them what their thoughts are about color. And 2 courses that were extremely helpful were Sagi Haviv's Domestica course on the brand strategy process, as well as Core Discovery from thefuture.com. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Make sure this content gets out to more people. And if you are a creative entrepreneur and you're looking to level up, maybe you feel stuck, learn from my mistakes. At agency.butlerbranding.com, we have a free webinar that talks about everything I've learned in scaling Butler Branding since we started in 2012. I'm talking about everything I've learned from brand positioning, marketing, sales, strategy, and project management. So learn to level up for free at agency.butlerbranding.com.